Tá tábhacht freise ag buint le lád na Eorp seo do muintir na hÉireann. Táimid ag chomórú chuige bliain mar ball den Aontas Orpach. Bhí ról tábhachtach ag ar máilríocht de forbairt na tíre seo ó 1973 le. This year's Europe Day has extra significance for the Irish people. We're marking 50 years as members of the European Union, and our membership has played an important part in our country's development since 1978. The story of a modern, prosperous and progressive 21st century Ireland is interwoven with the development of the European Union. And I think it's impossible to talk about trade and the economy, farming and food, the green agenda, peace on this island, or the development of citizens' rights without reference to the role played by our EU membership. Regional, structural and agricultural funds in particular have helped provide vital investment in essential infrastructure, our rural and farming communities, and in education and training for our people. It's a story of an extraordinary transformation that I hope will offer inspiration to those countries now looking to join the European Union, from Ukraine and Moldova and Georgia to the countries of the Western Balkans. The European Union is first and foremost built on a set of values and on the rule of law and the treaties that underpin it. This underpins the sharing of sovereignty and deep-rooted cooperation among member states. These values include respect for human dignity, freedom, democracy, equality and human rights. We live in a European Union in which democracy, freedom of religion, the rule of law, rejection of the death penalty, basic rights for LGBT people and equality between men and women is the norm. This is not the case in most other continents. Founded in the aftermath of the devastation of the Second World War, the European Union was conceived as a peace project. One of our greatest statesmen, John Hume, saw in the European Union a model and a vision for how a lasting peace could be built. The European Union was a dependable partner throughout the peace process and remains resolute in its support for the Good Friday or Belfast Agreement. Without the courage and vision of the leaders from right across the political traditions on these islands, we would not have the peace that we enjoy today, and we would not have had prosperity or investment on the scale we've experienced. So as we face new challenges, we should not lose sight of this, and will continue to engage with all communities and traditions on the island to build a vision for our shared future in an inclusive, constructive approach underpinned by the agreement. The Windsor Framework, recently agreed between the EU and UK, can play an essential role in protecting the Good Friday Agreement and in providing economic opportunities to Northern Ireland. It's critically important that we continue this partnership approach and that the framework is implemented fully and in good faith. I really hope that we're marking a positive new departure for EU-UK relations, allowing us to forge a stronger partnership to overcome shared global challenges and an opportunity for an improved British-Irish partnership as well. My focus now is on getting the institutions of the Good Friday Agreement up and running across all three strands, and the framework is clearly for and about Northern Ireland, providing stability and predictability that Northern Ireland needs. I firmly hope that the Windsor Framework will play a role in securing additional investment for Northern Ireland, as well as offering real economic benefits to us as well. The framework has been welcomed by the business community in the North, which has expressed a genuine desire to move forward and to take advantage of the opportunities and economic certainty it offers. This year marks the 30th anniversary of the single market, which opened the door to Ireland's economic success. As we reflect on the development of the single market, it is fitting to recall the significant role played by late Minister James Doog. During Ireland's presidency of the Council in 1984, he was appointed to chair a group tasked with making suggestions for improving European cooperation. There were concerns at the time that Europe's economy risked falling behind in the face of a new global competition, and that its development needed new strategic impetus. Senator Doog's Committee on Institutional Affairs reported to the European Council in Dublin in December 1984. Those conclusions provided the political underpinnings for the action plan adopted by the Delors Commission in 1985 to abolish within 7 years all physical and technical barriers to free movement within the community. The Single European Act came into force in 1987 with a clear aim of stimulating industrial and commercial expansion within a large unified economic area. The single market is now the cornerstone of the European economy and a driver of innovation and prosperity, reducing transaction costs, aligning regulatory standards and rules, and opening access to a market of more than 450 million people. The European Council and the European Commission have rightly identified that the further reduction of barriers, especially for services, is essential if it is to remain the primary driver of EU competitiveness and growth. In my own contributions to the European Council, I've emphasised that Europe's long-term strategy for future prosperity must be based on our economic strengths and ensuring the right market conditions for investment and entrepreneurship in the decades ahead. This includes greater mobilisation of public and private resources through the European Research and Innovation System. We also need to develop our capital markets to finance new fast-growing firms at the technological frontier of the twin transitions, digital and green. Our single market must also be complemented by an open and ambitious trade policy based on the highest levels of cooperation with trusted partners so that we can advance global prosperity. We must protect the multilateral rules-based system and defend against unfair trading practices. I believe we should see the single market as a level playing field among member states on which it is built as a driver of 21st century standards, particularly social and environmental standards as well. At Caherlock, climate change is the single biggest threat facing humanity today, and we must be the generation that turns the tide on climate change and biodiversity loss. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IGCC, tells us that human activity has already caused the global temperature to reach more than 1 degree above pre-industrial levels. This scale is unprecedented, and the European Union is the world leader in spearheading the fight against climate change. It's made the green transition a core objective and endorsed a binding target of a net reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 of at least 55%, and to become the first climate neutral continent by the middle of the decade, or middle of the century. With its member states, the EU is also the largest provider of climate finance in the world, helping developing countries to deal with the adverse effects of climate change. The Fit for 55 landmark package of ambitious climate policy measures will be formally agreed in the coming weeks and will turn ambition into action. Europe's response to the pandemic, particularly in funding and procuring vaccines, showed us what can be achieved when we work in unison for the common good. We know how to harness this same ambition and commitment to confront climate change. The energy crisis caused by Russia's brutal invasion of Ukraine reinforces the need for Europe to accelerate the radical transformation of our energy system. This includes placing energy security, efficiency, energy saving, diversification, and an acceleration towards renewables at the heart of our climate and energy policies. At the recent North Sea Summit in Ostend, I made it clear that Ireland is ready to play our part. We have a sea area that is 7 times our landmass, and we're home to some of Europe's best wind speeds. Developing our offshore wind energy capacity will over time eliminate our dependence on imported fossil fuels and will allow Ireland to achieve energy independence within a generation. This is our moonshot, giving us energy security, price stability, creating new jobs and industries in all parts of Ireland, as well as reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. So we'll work closely with our regional partners and the European Commission to provide the offshore grids and electricity interconnection that will enable the trading of offshore renewable energy with the rest of Europe. The Celtic interconnector between Ireland and France should be seen just as the start. As public reps, we recognise the tangible benefits that European Union membership brings. The ability to work, live, study freely across the European Union is an immensely valuable one. It's not just about economics. We share a common currency with 19 other member states, reducing transaction costs and easing trade and travel. For students, participation in the Erasmus programme and studying abroad has opened the door to new cultures, languages and career paths. More than 10 million students have had their lives enriched through the programme, initiated by former Irish EU Commissioner Peter Sutherland. Many people make friends for life through Erasmus, and many people find life partners through Erasmus and started new families. Travel is more accessible and affordable because of the European single sky, and European legislation has increased safety standards and improved passenger rights. Mobile phones can be used across the European Union without any additional roaming charges. Irish consumers can safely and easily buy goods and services throughout the EU. Equal pay for equal work, family leave and many other workers' rights derive from and are protected by European law. The European Health Insurance Card and the Cross-Border Directive provides for free or reduced cost healthcare across the wider European Economic Area when we need it. As someone born after Ireland joined the EEC, I've always lived with the benefits of European membership, but I've never taken them for granted, having canvassed for a yes vote in every referendum put to the people in this country on Europe since I was 19 years old. European integration is fundamentally a political project, driven by generations of Christian Democrats, Social Democrats and Liberals. But it has never had universal support, and we see the strength of Euroscepticism in many European countries and its end consequences with Brexit in the United Kingdom. In Ireland, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael were the only parties to support joining Europe 50 years ago. Labour came on board later and has been enthusiastically pro-European for many decades now. The Green Party, initially opposed to European integration, has supported further integration for more than a decade now. But this is not the case when it comes to Sinn Féin and radical left parties like People Before Profit. They oppose joining, oppose the single market, oppose the four freedoms, oppose EU citizenship and oppose the euro. Sinn Féin has campaigned for a no vote in every European treaty put to the people in this state by referendum, and their leader was also leader of many of these no campaigns. While it has moved a lot since then, Sinn Féin remains a Eurosceptic and Euro-critical party. Its manifesto commits to withdrawing from PESCO, the European Union's structured cooperation on defence and security. If this were to happen, it would be the first time for Ireland to move away from Europe since we joined 50 years ago, and away from integration. We would no longer be at the heart of Europe, and aside from weakening our security, it would also send the wrong message about where Ireland sees itself in the world and its place in Europe. Sinn Féin also virulently opposes the ratification of major EU free trade agreements, indeed boasts that it has done so for 20 years. In the past 15 years, we as a country have weathered many major threats, many of which were external in origin: the global financial crisis, Brexit, the pandemic, the energy and inflation shock caused by the war in Ukraine. And if anything, we tend to emerge stronger. I believe the next big threat we face is not an external one, it's rather an internal one, taking the form of radical change to our long-standing successful policies on Europe, trade and the economy. This is not the change we need. It would definitely be change for the worse. Like Brexit, it would make us poorer, less secure and less influential in the world. Particularly on a day like this, Europe Day, we should not be blind to this threat, and we have a responsibility to call it out, in my view. Throughout the last 5 decades, Ireland has sought to be a constructive, credible and positive partner. Our contribution across the full range of Union policies has been to the benefit of Ireland and the EU as a whole. The greatest challenges that we face today, whether it's the war in Ukraine or the urgent need to take action on climate, are increasingly global. They cannot possibly be met by individual countries acting alone. Even large countries can't deal with issues so big. They can only be successfully confronted by working with our European Union friends and partners, and indeed in a global context. I can hear speaking to this House on our first Europe Day in 1973. The former Taoiseach and then Minister for Foreign Affairs, the late Garret Fitzgerald, looked ahead to Ireland making a constructive and positive contribution to the evolution of the European community. He said that the shape of Europe's future evolution would be decisive to Ireland's own national development as an economy and as a society. Speaking at a time when most of Europe's population still lived under the yoke of communism, he describes the challenge in the following terms, and I quote, "This means that we must enlarge our horizons and be prepared to take the lead where in the past we would have been content to modestly follow. To this end, we should try to mobilise the intellectual energies of our people, to stimulate thought on how this community can increasingly become one in which the peoples of Europe will be proud to participate and in which they will feel a genuine loyalty deriving from their recognition of the contribution that the community can make in their own individual lives." The late Dr. Fitzgerald was a great European and one of many great Irish Europeans who helped bring this vision to reality over the last half-century. The European ideal has always been inspired by a spirit of optimism, a belief in a better future. Recent crises have tested that ideal, but they have not broken it. Indeed, they've probably strengthened it. So if the case for Irish membership was compelling 50 years ago, it is even more compelling now. Daintas orpach an lá inniu, níos mó agus níos éagsúla ná an ceann a neachimid isteach ann i 1973. Is é ar mbaile gur cuidigmuid a thógáil agus tá a bhunús láidir. Tá muid ag súil go mór leis an 150 bliain eile de bhallriacht, le Muin agus le Ullmhíon. Today, the European Union is bigger and more diverse than the one we joined back in 1973. It's our home that we've helped to build, and its foundations are strong, and we look forward to the next 50 years of membership with confidence and ambition.